Hello. There was once a boy who wanted a piece of fruit. He wanted it so badly. His father said, "No, you cannot have this. You cannot have the piece of fruit now. It'll ruin your appetite. We're saving it for something else." The little boy really wanted that piece of fruit, and he kept asking, and the father kept saying no. Finally, he came up with an idea. He said the pre-blessing for the fruit of the tree. At that point, he had to eat a piece of the fruit. He had no choice. And the father, being his father, had no choice but to allow him to have a piece of the fruit. About a month ago, I was in Jerusalem and I had the opportunity to look into the Temple Mount area. I wanted to see with my own eyes. I wanted to be able to feel it. I wanted to be able to kind of get a sense of the measurements, just a basic feel of the place. So, not wanting to go with a group because I'm not sure if the group is really going through in the right way, or at least in a way that would be appropriate for a non-Jew. I decided to go up there by myself. When I got to the gate, I saw that people were leaving their bags there at the gate by the security guard, and because you're not supposed to bring a purse up, so I left my shoulder bag with the guard, and I continued up. About halfway up the ramp, I realized that my yarmulke, that I was going to put my yarmulke on before I went up there because it's a holy place, but I realized my yarmulke was in the shoulder bag, and you can't backtrack to get things out of the bag. The guard told me that. So I figured, okay, I'm just going up here to look, and I'll just be going up there in a secular kind of way. I got up there. I took the long way around the area because we're not really sure where the temple actually was, or at least I'm not sure. Other people are sure, but I'm not sure. And when I got, I'm by myself, and when I get to a place in the northeast corner of the area that's known as, that would be considered the Temple Mount, I went. There was a prayer group coming through that was leaving, and the guards came up to me because they didn't know why I was there by myself, and they were kind of, they just guarded the area. They were a little gruff and guarded the area until the prayer group went by, and then I got in and I walked all the way down to the other far end, the southeast corner where Solomon's stables are. And I'm just looking around in that area, and that's when one of the WAF guards came over and was also gruff to me. Oh, what are you going to do? You get, when you're by yourself, everyone assumes you're with the other guy. So they're telling me where I'm allowed to stand, where I'm not allowed to stand. Okay, fine, everything. I see what I want to see. I get a feel for what I want to get a feel for, and I start heading back. And when I get to the area that's like the designated prayer area for the groups, there's a small group there, and they're doing their afternoon prayer and they're prostrating. And I had the opportunity to see this, but the guards were also very sure that I stayed a distance away, which it was a respectful thing to do. So I figured it would be like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So I just hung around. As that group is getting ready to leave, so I had the opportunity to see what they're doing, but as that group is getting ready to leave, I hear another group coming, and they're dancing and singing, and they're that's a larger group. And I realize I probably need to get through before that group comes, and the other group is kind of hanging around. So I asked if I could go through, and finally the guard let me go through. Maybe I should have hung around. I could have milled in with the group, or maybe the guards wouldn't have appreciated me doing that. But without my yarmulke, I kind of look like an outsider anyway, which I am an outsider because I'm not a Jew. But so I got through and was able to leave at that point. Okay, so that was my experience up there. And while I didn't do any prayer or I didn't do anything of like that, I did have the opportunity to look around and to see with my own eyes what's going on. As far as the soreg, that's the area that is against the rules for a non-Jew to cross. And it's sort of a wide area because we don't know for sure where the temple was. And one pincer point that I noticed in my earlier video is where the double gate stairway comes up would be a problem if the temple was on that side. In the large open area between the Dome of the Rock and the mosque. That would be a pincer point. The Jewish people are allowed to go through there because it would, if that's the temple area, then they'll be cutting through the women's courtyard that technically they're kind of allowed to do, at least by strict law they're not allowed. They're allowed to, even though they shouldn't, but they are allowed to. And according to this book that I picked up at the Temple Institute a day or two later, one of the possibilities also has the soreg, that's the area that non-Jews are not allowed to cross, overlapping the Golden Gate, which is on the other side of the possible temple area. So either way, it is problematic for a non-Jew to be able to cross through. So where I went, I may have gone through the area that non-Jews are not permitted, by decree of the death by the hand of heaven, non-Jews are not allowed to cross. So I may have gone through that. And I'm thinking about that. I'm also noticing the prostrating that the temple faithful are doing. They're prostrating because they understand that is the temple area. And even though it's a stone floor that they're prostrating on, it's because it's the temple area, they understand that it's okay to do that. Now, for a non-Jew, we're allowed to prostrate, full prostration, basically anywhere, unless we're in a house of idol worship. But any other place, we're allowed to do a full prostration for the sake of God, for the sake of heaven. As far as I can tell, in the Temple Mount, even on a stone floor, if it's not the location of the temple, if the temple's on the other side, we would still be allowed to prostrate on a stone floor as long as it's not an individual stone. For a non-Jew, we're not allowed to prostrate on an individual stone. For a Jew, they're not allowed to prostrate on a multiple stone floor. So non-Jews might be allowed to prostrate in the manner that the Jews are doing on the Temple Mount, in that area, regardless of whether or not that's the actual area of the Temple Mount. Now, the Jews are taking an extra risk because they're assuming that is the area that they're allowed to prostrate, and they're assuming that multiple stone floor has the status of the temple floor. Now, the stone was laid by either the Ottoman Turks or by the Arabs. It was not laid for the Temple Mount. So whether or not that would have a status, I don't know. But I imagine, and this also helps me to understand the problem with the soreg, is that we're like that child, kind of forcing the issue. We're forcing the issue. We're saying, okay, if we're operating under certain assumptions, and we're saying, well, if the accusing angel wants to take us to the heavenly court and come after us, they're going to have to prove whether that's the temple. The only way they can prove that it's the temple is by having the temple. You'd have to prove it by having the temple be there. And well, we all want the temple to be there. So it's kind of an audacious way of approaching it. But to go up on the Temple Mount, where we're not exactly sure where the temple is, and to prostrate in an area that may be allowed to prostrate. That's forcing the issue, and it's forcing the father to figure something out. So I would think that there's definitely benefit to that, and maybe I'm not saying yes, but maybe in the future I would be interested in going up with a group and being one of the audacious people that do what may or may not be the proper thing to do, but just say, build the temple now. Thank you.